All right, man, we can go ahead and get started now.
Sounds good. Hi, everybody. Welcome wherever you're watching it and whenever you're watching it. If you're watching it later on YouTube or you're watching it right now on YouTube or Zoom, it's going to be an interesting session, not like a traditional webinar that we usually do, but it's going to fall more in a podcast version, in a conversational version where Michael and myself we would be having conversation around various topics, various things that we often hear clients ask questions about, mention either the one-on-one clients, the clients inside the virtual speech masters. But not only would we be having a conversation, you can jump in, you can add comments, you can ask questions throughout the discussion and will have some further room for questions towards the end. But make sure that you jump in when you have a comment, when you have a question. If you're on YouTube, you can write a comment. If you are on Zoom right now, you can just unmute yourself, say something, write something in the chat box. Unfortunately, if you're watching it later on YouTube, you cannot make a comment that we can answer right now, but we'll go ahead this way. Michael, so shall we get started?
Let's get started.
I see you're
Yeah.
doing a lot of stuff right now with Zoom and YouTube and recording and
Yeah.
Zoom.
I was just adding a post. I was sending out a post on YouTube and letting people know on YouTube in the live session
Mhm,
that they can ask
mhm.
us questions. So,
Sounds good. So let's get started with the self-talk and affirmations part. That is one of the most important parts that we have inside the system. And like we often say, without self-talk, without affirmations, almost nothing else works. So, Michael, would
yeah.
you like to get started with this topic, or do you want me to get started?
Yeah, I'll share a few things. And Giovanni is on here. He's one of my current clients. And
Mhm.
Giovanni, if you want to chime in after I'm done, somewhere in between, that'd be great. You can do video, you can do just voice if you want. But we've been talking about this very thing, and he said the other day that he was just starting to realize how important self-talk and affirmations are, especially while you're speaking. While you're speaking, so if he's able, I would love for him to chime in and say whatever he would like to say in his own words. But sorry, Michael, currently at work, just listening. Okay. Yeah. So he's not able to join it. But another client of mine, I think it's Vanessa, she said the same thing that she said she's been working with me for several weeks now. And she said she missed this, even though I've been saying it the whole time. It's in the material. She said she was just focused on other things. And it's finally become apparent to her how important self talk is, and especially self talk in the moment. So, why is it important and what does it address? Well, as briefly as I can possibly be, um, we have certain thought patterns, things that we think, worry, negative anticipation. I have to introduce myself. I have a meeting coming up. I have to answer the phone. I have to say these letters or these words. So we start negatively anticipating. We can also hear ourselves saying, oh, I'm not going to be able to say that, or I'm going to have a bad speaking day. Sometimes, like Vanessa and I were talking about, it's not a conscious thought, but it's a feeling. You just feel like you're not going to be able to say it. You feel like you're going to have a bad day. And a lot of this comes from your previous experience, right? Which is wired into to kind of our procedural memory. This is the way it is. This is the way we're going to act. Um, a lot of it has to do with our beliefs. So you don't even have to think or say anything. It's just because you believe this, then for you, it becomes true. So If you are watching or listening, and this is something that you are experiencing, which I would say all of our clients at some point experience this, right? Like they all experience this. Um, then self-talk, affirmations, and listening to audio as well as listening to affirmations is probably the biggest solution. Now, visualization, verbalization, extremely powerful, maybe even more powerful for some of you than this. But self-talk, absolutely necessary. Listening to affirmations, because it's passive, one of the things that it does for our clients is it boosts their confidence and changes the content of their thinking. Okay. So all my clients tell me when they're listening to affirmations, they start to just feel more confident. And Farrukh, maybe you can talk about when a person feels more confident, the cascading effect and the ripple effect that that has. And then it starts to change what they say to themselves and what they think and even how they feel. So I'll stop there.
Sure, Michael, thank you. Excellent point. So, just like we mentioned, without self-talk, there's almost nothing that works. So, all the rest of the stuff that is inside the system, or even if you're following something else or you're doing something else, you need self talk in order for you to be able to do those things. You need self talk in order for yourself to be able to focus on these things. We can tell you, do this, slow down, extend, blend, do this. But if you're not actively reminding yourself to constantly do that in the moment, before speaking, while speaking, it just won't work out. Because the natural way of speaking would be what you have been doing for the last so many years. Naturally, you would use your old speaking style. So, in order for you to be able to use your new speaking style, there is a conscious reminder that needs to be made again and again and again. And once again, before a conversation and during a conversation as well, or a meeting or a presentation or whatever it is. But there's also some self talk that you need to do after a speaking situation. And that refers more to looking at your speaking successes. People working on their speech sometimes get so much restrained to focusing on the failures that they often start to overlook the successes that they're experiencing. Like we stated in the last webinar as well, suppose you have a 5 minute conversation. Before you started working on your speech, the entire 5 minutes used to not go well. Now, after you have started working on your speech, at least you're doing well in that 1 minute. Often people would say, but yeah, the rest of the 4 minutes are not going well. But yes, that 1 minute is going well. That did not used to go well before. So, whatever you would focus on, it would grow. If you keep focusing on the failures, despite achieving the successes, they can often be overlooked. And your over focus on failures can build the failures up. Even if the successes are little and you're focusing on them, that is where you're growing your successes. So remember, self talk before speaking, while speaking is critically important to remind yourself to what to think about, what to do in the moment, and self talk after the speaking situations. It's also necessary to change the way how you look at that speaking situation that just happened. How you look at yourself as a speaker is a big part of self talk. We are going to talk about that. How do you look at speaking situations? That's a big thing as well. And affirmations, self talk, plus the audio listening. For me, I would say that audio listening played a huge role, especially at the start when someone gets started working on their speech. Them saying affirmations to themselves or them having self talk to themselves often sounds like it's a bit harder, especially when you're getting started, or that does not sound true, that does not sound believable. But when you hear someone else say that for you, like Michael inside the audios, starts to become more believable. And then you start doing your own self talk as well, your own affirmations as well. So all what affirmations, self-talk, audio listening are doing, it's changing the content of your thoughts about your speech, about how you see yourself as a speaker, and about how you perceive speaking situations. If you just keep trying to focus on the techniques without changing your mindset, and you still have that stuttering mindset that we call, always scanning out for words, always looking to get stuck, and you keep doing all the rest of the things without changing this mindset, often nothing works out because you're not constantly reminding yourself what to do that is necessary in order for yourself to do those things. And then you're not changing the content of your thoughts. You're not changing how you see yourself as a speaker and everything that I said. So this thing is something which is critically important. So, Michael, I think you are doing something for the affirmations, like an affirmation course now. So,
Yeah, I'm
all
getting ready
about
to, I'm pasting in a link for people to, there's a free PDF. It's got everything in it, strategies to help you to remember, to slow down, as well as to encourage you. It's got affirmations in there. And then the next link I'm going to post is for you to actually get the affirmations on Soundwise. So it's very inexpensive. It's like 24.97, I think, something like that. But check those two links out. I'll also post them again in YouTube. Uh, we were at the Virtual Speech Masters last Saturday, remember? And I think Mirella, she was here, but I guess she's not here right now. And she said, well, Michael, let me ask you a question. How did you, let me back up. She said, I heard you kind of stumble a little bit, or you were a little disfluent or something like that. And she said, so how do you or how did you handle that? I said, well, the way I handled it is that I didn't think about it. I didn't notice it. Right. And so like we all laughed. But when your identity changes, and you'll always hear us say, everyone is disfluent from time to time. No one speaks perfectly fluent 100% of the time. There might be someone who speaks perfectly fluent sometimes, maybe even a lot, but no one's going to be 100% fluent 100% of the time. And that includes us. And so, yeah, there will be times where you'll hear me stumble or double or have a disfluency or something like that. And because my identity has changed, most of the time, if not the vast majority of the time, I don't even think about it. I don't even notice it. It's like we say, like a bump in the road, just go over the bump and you just keep rolling. Um, so it's important to know, and we can kind of shift into identity. I think this is a good segue into that. But initially, you may have to do a lot of self-talk around uh, encouraging yourself, encouraging yourself to do certain things in the moment. Like Farrukh said before, self-talk, affirmations important. During, they're critically important because you have to raise your awareness of what you're actually doing in that moment, what you're thinking in the moment. And some people say, well, how can I think about slowing down or breathing while I'm speaking or when I'm under pressure? Trust me, you can do it. And once it becomes a habit, then you don't really have to do it. But you can do it. You can do it. And then there is the self-talk affirmations after, so you don't do what we call ruminate, go back and beat yourself up, right? So all three of these periods of time are important. So what begins to happen is the more you change your self-talk and you stop negatively anticipating for the most part, you stop beating yourself up, you get to a place where hopefully you can stop thinking about, well, I have to introduce myself or I have to go do this. And once you, or even when you're speaking, if you stumble over something, you don't even notice it or it doesn't bother you. So all of that is a result of positive, constructive self-talk, as well as a shifting in your identity. So there will become a time where you don't have to do a lot of self-talk. Now, I still do self-talk in other areas of my life to just encourage myself to do things. There was something else I was going to say about self-talking in the moment. It slipped. I'll think about it later, possibly. But now's a good time, though, for us to shift into identity. And you can always talk about whatever you want to talk about, Farrukh, like if you want to add something else about self-talk. But I'll just introduce it like this. What you consistently say to yourself, and then and how you interpret your performance. Remember what Farrukh said. Okay, let's say you have 5-minute conversation, 4 minutes didn't go well, but normally 5 minutes don't go well. But now, because of the work you're doing, 1 minute goes well, right? So how you interpret that and what you say to yourself about that determines whether you can now go from 1 minute to 2 minutes, to 3 minutes, to 4 minutes, to 5 minutes. It's all determined on how you interpret that, what you say to yourself during and even after, right? And then the more you interpret and the more you encourage yourself, the more confident you become, almost irregardless of, or regardless of how you're speaking, as long as you're seeing incremental improvements, what you say to yourself forms your new identity, right? Because now, and here's the thing, once you say to yourself, I am the kind of person, or you can think this or feel, I'm the kind of person that can handle just about any speaking situation. If I have to introduce myself, even if I've had problems, I'll figure that out. If I have to say this, I'll figure it out. I'll figure out a way to do it in an elegant, smooth manner. Once you get to that place, and many of our clients are getting there, many are there, that you know where you're confident you can handle any speaking situation, you really begin to feel freer and you'll feel a big identity shift. I think there's some people on here like Haley and Yvonne, Gabriel. If you guys want to chime in and kind of reinforce something, you can. I'll just leave it there for now, Farrukh.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you. And the ultimate point when Michael says that you're confident to go out in any speaking situation that you have to speak, that does not mean people sometimes feel that it means we will not feel nervous before a presentation, we will not feel nervous before an important conversation at all. Even we feel that. And it's something that is a good feeling. You can use that feeling that we rather frame into excitement and use it to use your new speaking style, focus on the wake and rake, have more inflections, have more impact. So, with your heart racing fast, with your mind saying that you would get stuck, does not mean that you would get stuck or you would have a hard time. Before going into a speaking situation, if your heart is beating fast, you're feeling nervous, rather excited, that we call, that does not mean that you're going to have a hard time. But the point is, the identity shift is visible when you know that even when you're feeling that way, when your heart is racing fast, when you're feeling a bit excited, you know that even then you will speak well. So you're going into a presentation, you're going into an interview, there is a bit of that feeling, but you still know that you're going to go and do well. That's where you know that your identity is beginning to shift. Your identities is starting to shift. So that is something which is really, really important. And then identity also shifts with new experiences that your brain visualizes, that your brain sees for yourself. And how will you change those experiences with everything that we just talked about, with a lot of self talk, affirmations, audio listening, but then using this mindset to go out and speak in speaking situations? Like we often talk about going proactively, engaging yourself in speaking situations, gaining the successes. And then your brain starts to see, oh, that is how you are as a speaker now. Your speaking identities is starting to change. You're speaking more smoothly now. You're feeling more calm now. So, with you using all these things, self talk, affirmations, audio listening, and then consistently going out there activating and using your new speaking style once again by self-talk, constantly reminding yourself to do so. Once you keep doing this over and over, and once your brain sees that you're speaking smoothly over and over again, that identity shift starts to happen. Our brains like to focus on problems. So once the brain realizes that it's no longer a problem, once the brain realizes that getting stuck is no longer a problem, it's not a big deal, it stops focusing on that because brain does not like to focus a lot on what's going well. It's mostly trying to focus on what's not going well. So some people, when we ask them to, if they have a hard time saying their name or something, to blend it with the words previous to it or something like that, just giving an example, people often ask that, is that something that we have to do for our whole life? And the answer is no. Because once you keep doing that and once you keep saying your name or whatever it is smoothly over and over again, and your brain keeps seeing the successful speaking memories, the more it accumulates those memories, the more it realizes it's not a problem anymore, and it starts to shift its focus away from that. And when the focus is shifted away from that, when the focus is away from getting stuck in everything associated, getting stuck starts happening less because you're not worried about it, because you're not making it a big deal. And just talking about the getting stuck part a little, that we also did in the last webinar as well. And we would want you to jump in at your comments, at your questions. That would really be very, very good. So people often ask that, when do I feel like I'm at a place where my speaking identity is beginning to change? So one thing I just mentioned, when you know that even if you're feeling that your heart is racing fast, or you have fast breathing initially, or your mind saying that, oh, I'm nervous and stuff like that, even then you know that you're going to be able to speak well. That's a good hint for an identity shift. And the second is when getting stuck stops becoming a big deal. So identity shift does not mean that you would not get stuck. Some people focus on that. And the problem with this is that you once again fixate your mind on the approach of, I'm approaching this process with the idea, with the goal of not getting stuck. And that brings your focus once again back to it. But once you're realizing that you're working to become a smoother speaker, and getting stuck is not a big deal, once it stops becoming a big deal, you know that your identity is starting to shift. Yes, Michael.
So I just want to jump in there because this is very important here, in that as you begin to improve your speech, in fact, I wanted to say two things. One, you have to do the work and you have to do it consistently, along with boosting your confidence, right? So along with listening to affirmations, doing affirmations, feeling more confident, there's also, for most people, some physical practice and work that they have to do. And the more you immerse yourself in it, the faster and the better you're going to see improvements in your speech. So some things will happen automatically just from listening, but other things are going to take some work. So that's one thing. The other thing is, when you are out there and you are in certain situations that are high pressure and so forth, and you begin to think and tell yourself that you can handle this, um, you have to understand it's not about being perfect, right? When you take the pressure off yourself of being perfect, you actually will reach higher and higher levels of performance. So one of the things that I've always done is, I've never had as a goal, I want this presentation to be absolutely flawless and perfect. What I focused on was, how can I make this clear? Really, it was Vic and Rick. Value, relevancy. How can I hold their attention? How can I make this clear? The more I focused on that, and the less I focused on what they would think of me, uh, if I would, if my speech was going to be perfect, if I was going to get stuck or not, the less I focused on that, and the more I focused on really adding value and impact, the better I did, and the less and the less I got stuck. The other thing I wanted to note is we use the word getting stuck. So some people wonder, what do they mean by getting stuck? When they say blocking or stuttering? So Farrukh, maybe you can share why we use words like getting stuck.
So, Michael, so that certainly has a lot to do with that identity that we have been talking about so far. Even if you keep doing the work, even if you start to experience successes, but you still look at yourself or you still perceive yourself as a person who stutters, then that belief is going to sit in your subconscious and it's going to impact your speech. Even if you feel like your speech is starting to improve, if you feel like I'm improving my speech as someone who stutters, I'm beginning to stutter less, I'm beginning to block less, then once again, the focus is still stuttering, the focus is still blocking, and you're still looking yourself as someone who stutters. And that would impact your identity and that would impact your speech. When you change the words to something like getting stuck, although you might say that's the same thing, yes, it's the same thing, but how you say it makes a huge amount of difference. Because if you go out and look out there in the real world, you will find that almost everyone gets stuck from time to time. Just like Michael said, nobody is 100% fluent 100% of the times. But they don't listen, they don't identify themselves as someone who stutters. For some reason, within a certain period of our lives, probably when we were a child, something happened, we got stuck, we got a pretty negative reaction to that. Then we started worrying about it more, and then we created a self identity that I am someone who stutters. So if you're beginning to work on your speech, especially with the Pro 90D speech system, you know that our goal is not to get you to a place where you don't get stuck. It's to get you to a place where you speak in an excellent, impactful, smooth manner. And obviously, this and getting stuck can't be happening at the same time. So the getting stuck part takes care of itself. But the more you try to remove it, the more it happens. So the goal should be clear. I'm getting in, I'm working on my speech to become a smoother speaker, to become an excellent speaker, to become an impactful speaker. And the words stuttering, blocking have to not be used at all, because until then you would still keep associating with those words. Your goal would still be to not stutter more, to not block more, even to not get stuck more. And you can use get stuck. It's a much less impactful word than stuttering or blocking. And then you know that everybody gets stuck. Even better, I think, is to say that I just spoke less smoothly. During that time, during that conversation, during that meeting, there were some times where I spoke less smoothly. So this way, you would always be measuring your success in terms of smoother speech. Some people, they just come to us and they said that that situation was successful because I got stuck or I started or whatever less. That's good. That's what we want. But we want you to look at it like it was more smooth. Although that's the same thing, but how you look at it, just like I said, makes an incredible amount of difference. Likewise, if you perceive certain speaking situations where you did not do very well, and you say, I got stuck more, or even more impactful, I stuttered more, or I blocked more, instead of that, you can say that I just spoke less smoothly. All right, now what can I do to speak more smoothly? So once you change your mindset to that, your mind is always focused on smooth speed, smooth speed, smooth speed, smooth speed. Okay, this was less smooth, this was more smooth. How can I make it more smooth? So when you're constantly focused on that, your smoothness level starts to increase. Even if you're measuring your successes by I'm stuttering less, then subconsciously you're still focusing on stuttering. And when you would scan to see if you're stuttering less, you would stutter more, because once again, your mind is back to stuttering when you are checking whether you're stuttering, whether you're blocking or not. But when you're always scanning for smooth speech, I want smooth speech, that is something that begins to change. And it's a win win situation, like we talk about. once you go in this direction, the getting stuck part, stuttering part, and everything takes care of itself. In short, don't use the word stuttering, blocking at all. If you want to say something, for example, of a client saying something to us, they use something like get stuck. But even better, I would say, is to look at it in terms of less smooth, more smooth, and measure your successes based on that. Even if it did not go well, say that it was less smooth. It was still smooth, but probably less smooth. Now, what can I do to make it more smooth?
So, welcome, Cassandra, and good to see you. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to jump in. And we do have a question from YouTube that I think I posted on here from Jamal. And he said, over the last couple of months, I can see my identity change where getting stuck doesn't bother me. Great. However, one question I have is that there are times during high pressure speaking situations when I get stuck and I feel that fight or flight gets activated. I just start stumbling my entire phrase. What would you recommend to do when I feel myself getting stuck so it doesn't affect my entire conversation? So that's his question. Um, so I'm going to open that up. I don't know if you have any comments or even advice that you've been using recently, Cassandra. If you'd like to share, you can, or Farrukh, and then I'll jump in also. So the question is, you're talking, then all of a sudden you get stuck, and then and then everything just starts to go downhill. What do you do to kind of keep that from happening?
Mhm. Cassandra, would you like to go first, or?
Sure, I can go. So I'm actually still in the prepping or the learning phase. So I have not perfected that at this present time. So I'll defer it to you guys to answer that as I'm still in that mode of trying to adjust and learn all this myself.
Sure. Now, one thing that we want you to know, if you're doing something that's been helping you, whether or not you've perfected it or not, but if it's helping you, feel free to share it, right? Because there are other people who are where you are, and there's something that you're learning that's helping, right? So just feel free to share it. You don't have to be an expert or anything. It's just from wherever you are.
So, okay. Well, yes, I do have something to add then. So
Okay.
I do find that it is essential to ensure that you do your self talks and your affirmations. Because I have seen where I've not been as vigilant as ensuring that I have it in my ear during my transitional time. And I can definitely tell a difference in my language when I don't have that constant reminder or that self-talk or that encouragement or listening to you as a model and everything. So I definitely think that that is a very essential part in order to ensure that you do not forget what you're supposed to do. If you're going too fast, to slow down. And yeah, so that's definitely something that I would encourage any and everybody to do, is to keep that consistency, because I'm living proof that if you do not, that you are going to see the difference and a decline in your consistency.
Yeah. Well, let me add to what you said as it relates to the question of Jamal, because he's one of my coaching clients. He just has, I think, one more session left, actually. And it is really exposure. Sometimes it comes down to, you can have all the techniques that you want. You can watch and listen to everything. Sometimes you just have to, not sometimes, but you almost always have to just get in and experience it. Just do it and feel the fear fail, right? You just got to get in and do it, and do what we call desensitize yourself. Now, I experience this quite often when I'm speaking Spanish. Not my first language. I'd say I'm semi-fluent. Sometimes I get in, know exactly what I want to say, just can't say it. Can't say it. I would blocking, whatever you want to call it,
Mhm.
getting stuck. Can't say it. However, I just keep doing it. And the more I do it, just even within several minutes, it just could be 10 minutes, like I'm sitting in the barber's chair or I'm sitting out someplace and talking with a friend that speaks Spanish. And just within several minutes, start to become a little more relaxed. I ignore the fact that I got stuck. This is all self-talk, right? I'm just reminding myself in the moment, okay, that's all right. I don't beat myself up. It's okay, keep trying, try to say it this way, try to say it that way. And just by trying, become a little more relaxed, a little more comfortable, and I start, and I'm able to speak a little more fluently, but only because I expose myself and experience the failure and the fear, right? And then I just keep going. And lo and behold, if I do that long enough, I become more relaxed, more confident, and more fluent. So if I do it for a day, I'm much more fluent. If I do it for 2 days.
Mhm.
And then it has that ripple effect where because I've gone out and I did it and I felt a bit more confident that I'm going to go out and I'm actually going to try to speak to more people and repeat that same process. So the feedback loop gets shortened, which means I can improve faster.
Mhm.
So a couple things to remember, you got to put in the work and the time. And ultimately, you have to expose yourself, right? To just experience it, shorten the feedback loop, fail as quickly as you can, fail as fast as you can, so that all of a sudden you're desensitized to it. Now you can start thinking more clearly. Now you can start to implement the things that you're telling yourself to do in the moment.
Mhm.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Great answer, I would say. So, uh, adding to the answer or repeating the answer, you could say both. So, the first thing, just like Michael said, is be sensitizing yourself to it. Second thing I would say that we just mentioned it to start changing your approach to getting stuck. And then the third thing, when you're in the moment and something like that happens, you just ask yourself, am I still in my new speaking style or do I feel like I'm drifting off? Am I speaking fast right now? Am I doing something that's taking me out of my new speaking style? So you ask yourself, what can I do right now that can trigger back my smooth speech? So you might realize, okay, let me breathe a bit more. Okay, let me slow down a bit more. Let me extend a bit more. So you do that in the moment and you feel like it triggers the new speaking style back again. And sometimes I often see that it's hard for people to change from, let's say, fast to slow speech in the moment. So for example, if you're going really really fast and you're feeling like you would get stuck in the moment, it's a bit hard to change directly to slow speech. But what you can do is that you can just pause, breathe, and then once again trigger slow speech, which ultimately triggers back your new speaking style. So sometimes that getting stuck part happens because you just realize, hey, I'm doing something wrong. Probably I'm not doing enough of that self talk to remind myself to use my new speaking style. So let me just pause, breathe, and do something that triggers it back again. Some people, breathing triggers their new speaking style. For some people, extending. For some people, visualizing their model. For some people, slowing down. For some people, using their hands. So when you realize that you're getting out of momentum a lot right now, do something that is easy for you to focus on, simple for you to focus on. And whenever you do that, it starts to trigger back the new speaking style. And once you start doing that, that momentum starts to jump in right back in. And like I said, sometimes it's hard to shift exact in the moment, but if you can take a pause, breathe, and once again continue by doing something and triggering your new speaking style, it generally becomes a lot easier.
So you reminded me of something, and then we should probably shift into what was it right here? I was just looking at it, focusing on the present moment. Yeah, but what you were talking about was what we call a pattern interrupt. You have to interrupt that pattern right then and there So with some of my clients who, when we start, let's just say that they are kind of severe, right? Like you can really see and hear that they're struggling with their speech. One of the first things that we have to do is to help them interrupt their pattern and not continue in that loop of pushing out the words like that, like just pushing it out. Sometimes people will think that that's involuntary. I can't stop it. Yes, you can. You actually can. Will there be times where you do it anyway? Well, yes. I mean, sometimes it even happens to me. I might see my lips do something or I'll do something. Rarely, but it does happen. But you can interrupt that pattern. And once you believe that you can, that it's not involuntary, it may feel involuntary, it may be automatic now, but you can interrupt the pattern. It all goes back to self-talk, like becoming aware. Oh, wait a minute. I'm pushing out a word. I'm trying to push through something, or I'm doing something that I usually do that I don't like. I need to interrupt this pattern by doing something else. And sometimes if you're just getting started and you don't have all the tools, sometimes it's just stopping, taking a breath, going back a word or two, or adding a word or two in there, but changing that word change, changing how you say that, interrupting that pattern. Because if you keep, for example, pushing out words, what your brain is doing is simply just reinforcing a current dominant pattern. It just reinforces like this is what we do, this is how we speak. So you can't expect to replace that with something new, smoother speech, if you keep allowing the old pattern to reinforce itself. Think of it like this. Let's just say you had a long-term relationship with someone. It's really strong. You broke up with that person. Now you're developing a new relationship. Well, if you keep calling and talking to and going out with the old person, you're going to keep you're going to keep the bond between you and that old person, that old relationship, right? Because you keep firing, you keep communicating with each other, which is exactly what those neurons are doing. They're communicating with each other and they have a strong bond. So you have to break that communication, separate yourself from that person, and spend more time communicating with the new person to build that relationship. Literally, this is what your brain is doing. It's creating a new relationship with neurons that represent this new way of thinking and speaking and feeling. In order to build that up, they have to communicate more, which is where Hebb's law comes in. Neurons, this is a simplistic definition. Neurons that fire together wire together. So the more you repeat the new behavior, the stronger that relationship becomes. This is where practice comes in, immersion comes in, self-talk comes in, awareness, so that you just keep on building that new relationship, right? Very, very important. Let's take a look at present moment. I'll get us started with that. Uh, this is it's a little advanced in one sense, but it'll become important to you depending on where you're at in your journey. There is a period of time where we have to be aware of what we're doing and we have to say, now breathe more. Or how would my model say this? Or let me just slow down and relax. There's a period of time where you have to be conscious. Just like when you're learning anything, there's a period of time where you have to be conscious and you have to tell yourself what you need to do. But then once you've learned how to do it and you're doing it, you'll move into a phase where you actually have to let go and stop thinking, right? And this includes anticipating situations that you're going to get into. I'm going to order food or have a meeting. And if you're thinking about that and you're dwelling on it and you're worrying about it, that can be not very productive for you or destructive just by even thinking about it much. Sometimes you have to learn, well, not sometimes, all the time, you have to learn how to just be in the present moment and let go. Not think about what other people are thinking, not be in your own head all the time. Just be there and let go. And this means in every area of your life, when you're driving, when you're out, just observe what's going on around you. Just soak it all in. Try not to be in your own head as much.
Thank you, Michael. That was a really good explanation for that. And I'll just add on to that by stating something that I saw with myself a lot, and I also saw with some of you quite often, especially with myself a lot, that while someone was speaking, when I was speaking to someone over the phone, instead of listening to them and instead of having to put my mind to listen to them, I was always in my head about what I need to say next, and then worry about how I would say it. And then what if I cannot say it? And this and that. Now, focusing on that does not help your speech. Like Michael said, it is destructive. And then the second thing, you're not listening to what the other person is saying. So, a good part about a conversation, let's say, is to just tune into the listener. Once again, that focus shift that you need, your mind drifts off towards, oh, what do I have to say? And what if I get stuck on that, towards back to the listener? Then your focus goes away, then you get it back to the listener. So everything that we speak about, the work on your speech, the change of your mindset, it's all about focus. Once you learn how to keep this focus towards where you want, like Michael said, for example, when we go into presentations, for example, when I gave a talk at an organization right here in Frankfurt, I did feel like I'm going in as a speech coach. So what if I get stuck? What if people see me that I'm about to get stuck and I fumble and stuff like that? But then I immediately changed my focus towards what I want to give to them. What do the audience have to take away from this session? How can I impact them? How can I give them at least one thing that they take away from it? And that focus shift took it entirely to another level. So it's all about focus, where you are focusing on in terms of your speech, whether the spotlight, you're getting it on you or you're getting the spotlight on the audience. I need to give something to them instead of they are sitting here to judge me. And what if I do this? And what if I do that? And everything. So focus shift is incredibly important. And even in order to live in the present moment, you would need that focus. You would need to focus on the present moment. It just won't happen automatically because we are so used to being in our heads. Even myself, and even I have to learn to do that in various things. I know I should not be in my head right now and focus on this instead, but I look at myself and say that, oh, I can see that I'm in my head. So this is something that is really helpful. So being in the present moment, stuff like meditation can help a lot with this skill. All meditation has to do is that it helps you keep your focus in the right place. So, for example, breath based meditations focus on focusing on your breathing. Your focus, your thoughts wander, but you put it back onto your breathing, then they wander, then you put back onto your breathing. Sometimes meditation can be as simple as focusing on what you can see right now, you can hear right now, smell right now, something like that. So, all this is doing is training your focus. And once you train your focus, it becomes easy to use your new speaking style because you know that I need to focus on this to speak more smoothly. It becomes easy for you to focus on the other person instead of yourself. It becomes for you easy to focus on the present moment, becomes easy for you to train yourself to focus on what do I want to give to the person, what do I want to give to the audience, instead of they are watching me, they are looking at me.
So three things. One, we have a question. Two, wanted to add, like just wanted to pause and ask you, Cassandra, if you had anything to add. Like, was there anything that really perked up for you that you that you wanted to share? And then I wanted to share a little story about focus.
Mhm.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so in my recent coaching sessions with you, I didn't realize the vast quantity of times I said, I'd been doing it for so long. And it really came to light when I impromptu recorded myself when I was doing a status update in the presence of probably about 100 or so people. And I sent it to Michael, and Michael was like, you're saying a whole lot. And I personally, because I've been doing it for so long, I didn't realize it. And so now what I'm doing, and I actually have a little sticky on my computer here to kind of like, okay, you need to focus on not saying so many times. And Michael, I've been recording myself in some of my meetings, and I can see a difference sometimes, but then I slip back and then I'll go, oh goodness, I said it like too many times. So trying to be in the moment and trying to understand that this is a that this is not a good way to be a smooth, confident speaker is by using all those ums. So I'm trying to be in that present moment to take the time to slow down and to pause and to not use those filler words. So yeah, I understand that, and it's definitely something that I'm going to continue to work on. And I'm occasionally doing my recordings when I'm talking in some of my meetings. Just said it again. But yeah, so that's something that I am doing now. I have my little reminder, and when I realize it, sometimes I don't realize it until I go back and listen to it again. But when I'm in the moment, then I'm trying to catch myself and change it, pause, extend, and so something instead of the So yeah.
You've done an excellent job today. I think maybe I only heard it once or twice, but it was almost unnoticeable just because we all do uhs and ums from time to time. But I was listening to you and watching you both times, really. And I think you've done, like, I mean, just you know, completely different. Had you done this a week or two ago, we probably would have heard a lot of ums. Now, again, I only really heard one or two. There might have been more, but great job. And that just shows you the power of self-talk and being in the moment, and aware of what you're doing. Right?
Mhm.
And once you create that new habit, then you can kind of raise that awareness and you can think about something else. Right. So I just wanted to share a brief little story, and then we'll answer Gabriel's question. This was some years ago, back 2015, 16. I was in the airport going to San Jose to visit with a friend, and we were doing or we were part of a business coaching workshop, and I was conscious that there were people around, and he and I were talking about something very, very deep, right? And so I was feeling pretty good and confident, and I said, "Wow, this is going to sound really good." I said, wait till I say this when people hear it." And you know what? I forgot what I wanted to say right then, because I had shifted my focus to what other people might think about what I was saying. This was in more of a positive way, but I was thinking, wow, I'm going to really impress them. I would have, I forgot. So that just goes to show you that if you just that moment, you can shift your focus to something and then just lose it. And it's fortunately for me, it wasn't in a bad way, but I laughed about it. And I even told my friends, I just forgot what I was going to say because I was trying to make it sound good. So that can happen. That does happen to a lot of us. We think, oh, what are they thinking of me? I hope I don't get stuck. I hope I don't block on this word. I hope I say this as intelligently as I possibly can. So as you start shifting your focus, then you could lose it. So I just wanted to share that and how important it is to keep your focus on things like Vic and Rick, and or sometimes just being empty-minded. Just being empty-minded, just go with the flow in that moment. So Gabriel had a question. How do you recommend someone should use exposure as a strategy to overcome sometimes irrational fear of failure you develop unconsciously? It's a great question, I'll try to be brief and just answer one aspect of it, which is, for me, it was about being proactive and having control and knowing and reading enough and listening to enough books to know that I have to expose myself. Like, you just have to get out there and expose yourself to it. However, the one thing I try to do is be proactive and remember the law of control. So being proactive means I'm going to create a situation where I'm in control, and as much control as I possibly can. Let me give you a specific example. In church, we have something called responsive reading, right? This is back years ago when I used to, be in the pulpit. And it's like where you read a verse and then the congregation would read something and then you read. So it's a timing thing. Number one, I hated reading. So now I got to read, which is huge. But then I have to pause and wait for someone else to read. And then I got to pick right back up and read. And I'm standing in front of hundreds of people. Hated that. So what I would do, a lot of times I would say no, but I would volunteer to read a scripture or preach where I would have to read a scripture. So I'd be proactive. I didn't completely avoid reading aloud. I just wanted to have more control over the flow. Now, once I started to do that, it had a ripple effect, a cascading effect. So then my confidence and my ability to read even responsively improved. So my point is, if you tell yourself, this is the only way I'm going to improve, the more I run away from this, the worse it's going to get. So what do I need to do? I want to expose myself, but I want to try to have as much control, because if the more in control I feel, the more confident I'll feel, the more relaxed I'll feel, the better I'm probably going to perform. So I want to create situations where I'm leading, I'm initiating, introducing myself, where I'm reading what I want to read. And by doing that, you'll perform better, you'll build your confidence, change your identity, and you will be okay with exposing yourself. So that's my little answer to that. What do you guys think?
So, great answer, Michael. I'll just add something very, very little right here. And that is sometimes what also helps me out is looking at what's the worst that can happen. Now, a good part about having so much unsuccessful speaking experiences in the past, like I've been to stages and not being able to say even a single word and then having to come back. So I know subconsciously that I've already experienced the worst. So nothing worse can happen than that. So once you often look at that's the worst that can happen, that sometimes often starts to alleviate some of the fear, because you realize that even the worst is not such big a deal that it would end the world for you and stuff like that. And then, just like we said at the start, your heart beating fast, you feeling like you might fail, does not mean that you would. So, how you can actually counter that feeling is by exposing yourself. So, this fear of exposure would start to get down once you start exposing yourself and doing something new. So, whenever we talk about exposing yourself, we do not mean that go out there and speak in the same way that you used to, but go out there, expose yourself, and use whatever you have been learning. Use your new speaking style. And once you visualize, once your brain sees that, hey, here's a here's a success that I just experienced, then guess what starts to happen? You know that, or you start to accumulate more successful speaking experiences. So that starts to grow. And the focus on what if I fail, what if this happens, what if that happens, start to diminish. So you can look at the worst scenario that can happen even if you go out there and get stuck. And I'm sure that many situations like this would have happened with you in the past. So look at what the worst that can happen. And then expose yourself, use your new speaking style, and oftentimes it's just getting yourself there. It's just raising your hand. It's just starting to say something. And once you expose yourself, once you start off well, it generally starts to go well then. And the more you do that, the more successes you experience, the more successes you accumulate, the more sample your brain has to change your speaking identity. All right, so this is changing now. This is who I am as a speaker now, or this is who I'm becoming as a speaker now. So yeah, just wanted to add to that.
Thanks, Farrukh. So somebody had a question, a statement and a question. When I'm reading a book in front of class, I never stammer on any word. And when I speak in front of class, I stammer all the time. So part of that's identity, right? Because that's apparently what's happening. But this person is also saying, this is what happens to me. This is what I tend to do. So that means that's a part of their identity. When I read, I'm fine. When I speak, I'm not. So one thing that we have to do is begin to change the mindset about speaking in front of class, about speaking, right? We have to change the mindset, which the mindset, the thoughts that you have, the what you listen to, affirmations and self-talk, starts to make you feel a bit more confident. But then there are probably some things that need to be changed about the speaking style. And this is where the work comes in. This is where modeling comes in, for example, which is what we need to shift to next. So modeling is a way we all learned, every person on this earth learned how to speak their initial language by modeling, because they didn't know how to read at first, right? You don't know how to read as a little teeny baby, but you do know how to observe. So what you learn how to do is just by watching and listening and feeling and sensing, you learn to speak your first language. Then later you learn how to read and so forth and so on. So modeling is one way to help a person change their speaking style. It also helps you kind of boost your confidence because you can borrow the confidence of your model. I know when I modeled, I changed my speaking style. I changed my posture. It boosted my confidence because I felt like my model and I wanted to feel that way. So modeling can help you with all of that. And then we also have something called free flow speaking, as well as proactive speaking techniques. So you learn how to breathe differently, maintain airflow and sound while you're speaking. You learn how to enunciate or articulate. So all those different techniques one has to practice so that when you get up in front of class, you actually have something different that you can do. Now, the first time, second, or whatever, you try to get up in front of class, you may not do as well as you would like just because that stress response and your belief and your identity says, when I get up to speak in front of class, I usually get stuck. So what you want to do is to find or create situations where you can speak in front of the class or raise your hand, and this can apply to people in meetings where you have a bit more control. You raise your hand and you say one or two things, or you ask a question, right? So you do something that you have control and it's a little less pressure. Then you work your way up, right, to speaking in front of class. You can practice modeling. You can also visualize. You can self-talk. All these things can improve. And like Farrukh said, the worst has probably already happened. So now if you practice and you do a little better, you can say, I did a little better that time. That boosts your confidence. Then you do it again and you do a little bit better. So the worst has already happened. So you can just only get better. It can only go up from there. So that's my response to that question or that comment. And this can be the same thing with people who struggle with introducing themselves, excuse me, or saying certain words or letters. As soon as they think about, I got to introduce myself, uh-oh, that procedural response just kind of kicks in. Okay, I have to introduce myself, then I'm going to get stuck. So we change that by changing how you introduce yourself, by changing the words or letters you use to preface the introduction, by sometimes just being more present and not worrying about introducing yourself. So these are all ways that one can help in terms of introducing themselves. All right. Hopefully I answered that question. Does anyone else have any other questions? So we can talk a little bit about modeling, Farrukh. I just mentioned some things about modeling. I think you'd be a great example just because I think you use modeling to kind of get you over that bridge. So maybe you might say something about that and then we'll wrap up.
Sure, sounds good. So probably just something very brief because I'm thinking about doing another conversation like this on modeling because obviously modeling is something which we can go a lot deep into, and that's something for a whole session, I should say. But yep, if you want to do all the things that we talked about at once, that's where the modeling comes in. Changing your speaking identity, the physical work that you have to do with speaking, that all starts to come as a package inside modeling. So once you model someone who has that mindset, once you model someone who speaks in a way that you like to speak, it can often start to change the game in the moment. But of course, it comes with a lot of practice. It comes with a lot of observational learning that we say of your model, listening to audios, watching videos, and then consistent practice by yourself over and over again, where we have formal modeling, free flow modeling, formal modeling, let's say, where you're modeling a clip of your model. You say the exact same words in the exact same way, then you can compare your video against the model, and then seeing your own content focusing on your model. Like myself, I modeled Michael for my own language as well, that I used to speak back in my country 99% of the times. So you can also model someone in another language. If you can find a model in your own language, good. If you cannot, you can also model Michael for that, or model whomever you want, because the speaking style stays the same. You just need to model the speaking style back into your language. At that time, I did not have a good model in my own language. I modeled Michael and it worked. So, modeling practice and then consistently going out there, asking yourself the question, if my model was here right now, how would he speak? How would he feel? How would he act? Just like an actor gets into a role that has been given to them in a movie, let's say, they become that role, they become that person. It's just like that. You focus on becoming that person, like you're in the shoes of your model right now. And you ask yourself, how would my model think right now, feel like, feel right now, speak right now? Oftentimes, what you just need is a simple trigger to activate your modeling style. Sometimes, when you slow down your speech, you start to get into your modeling zone. But all of the triggering happens once you have been practicing at the back end. If you continue to practice modeling at the back end, out there in the real world, you can focus on one or two things that your model does, slowing down, breathing, using your hands in a certain way, visualizing your model at that moment. And you find that whenever you do that, it starts to trigger modeling. And even if you leave out the triggering modeling, even when you start to ask yourself these questions, how would my model feel, act, speak, you're positively distracting yourself out of what if I get stuck? What if I have a hard time? So it's serving as a distraction, and you're modeling someone whom you would like to speak the way that they speak. And then modeling does not mean speaking like someone in the long term. I don't speak exactly like Michael. I have my own speaking style. But you can model someone to make the process faster. And once you reach to where you want, if you want to change something in your speech, you can always play around with that. But you're using someone else's speaking identity to create your own smoother speaking identity that ultimately will be your own. So you can take a model in another language. We often advise to model Michael because you get to listen to him a lot of videos, audios, and then you get to learn the skills that we learn inside the Pro 90 speech system, because at the same time, you would be extending, blending, inflecting, finishing, articulating, using your hands, doing all those things just by modeling someone who does that. So at the start, it might not be easy, but the more you do it, it gets easier and easier. And it's the fastest way to help you reach where you want to reach. Yes, Mike.
Yeah. So two things. One, you got to do the work. You have to put in the time. That's just the way our brains work. You might experience the placebo effect where you do a little bit and all of a sudden you become fluent, but the placebo effect is a very real effect, and you should use that to build momentum. So it's not fake. Your body really, you really are believing that something is happening, and it is happening, but you also have to reinforce that process with repetition, with action, with practice to, because you'll probably see a rise, then you might see a little dip, might be a big dip, but that rise was real. It actually told you that, hey, if I believe this is true, and if I'm confident, and I truly believe that this can happen, it can happen because I just experienced it. Don't think, oh, that was fake, that was just temporary. No, it really did happen. All I have to do now is to build the foundation under that with my experiences and long-term belief and self-talk to make that placebo effect a long-term effect, like a permanent belief. Very important. So you have to do the work. If you don't do the work, then you're just going to have your ups and downs. And then in terms of modeling, there's been lots of studies done, and we hope to even do more now that Farrukh is getting his master's in neuroscience, and probably you'll be doing a PhD too. I talk to clients and they say, well, if I pretend to be someone else, I'm completely fluent. They're just completely fluent. So trust me, the science is there. If you literally pretend to speak like someone else, uh, you can sometimes become completely fluent. And so what we're saying is the more you can get into this modeling, the faster and the better you can improve your speech. So some people say, well, I don't want to lose myself and I'm female, whatever. Many of my best modelers have been females. Some have been from other countries. So it doesn't really matter. You're not trying to make your voice sound like a man's voice, or if you have an accent, you're not trying to necessarily lose your accent. It's really it's a mindset thing, shifting your mindset. Uh, we call it either positive distractor or a mental puzzle. You get your mind working on something else that's how would my model say this? How would my model speak right now? Those are all positive things. If you're thinking about that and your brain knows how your model would speak, why? Because you've been watching and listening, and even better, you've been practicing. So your brain knows this is how my model would stand. This is how my model would use his or her hands. This is how my model would inflect. So your brain gets working on that, and it's trying to answer that question. How would my model speak right now? That your brain says, okay, your model would probably do this. Your model would probably do that. So then your brain says, all right, so let's try to do that. Let's try to do what we think our model would do. All that's doing is it's helping you speak smoother and look more confident, feel more confident, as opposed to, just like Farrukh said, you're you're worrying about something, negatively anticipating, thinking about what if this happens? I hope this doesn't happen. That's going to hurt you. But having a positive mental puzzle is going to help you. So modeling allows you to do that. And so some people, they say, well, just give me a technique that can help me right now. And we do have some techniques that can, but sometimes they're inconsistent, right? So really what you want to do is change your speaking identity, change your mindset, your thinking, and change your speaking style. And in that, there are some techniques and some things that you can do to help you do that. But modeling encompasses everything, and it will get you there faster without you having to technique your way into smooth speech. Techniques are important. We have them, we teach them, but modeling is the full package, it's the fastest way.
Sounds good, Michael. Thank you for adding that. Do we have any additional questions or comments from anybody?
Someone asked over here on YouTube, well, they said, thank you for our explanation, answering that question. They asked, do we recommend reading aloud? And I'm going to say, absolutely yes, we recommend reading aloud, especially if you, well, even if you don't struggle with reading aloud, but if you do struggle, reading aloud, reading on camera, reading because the words are there, you can shift your focus more to your style, your breathing, and your rhythm, and your enunciation, and all those things. However, reading aloud should not replace things like free flow speaking or just practicing saying things that you would say during your day, because it requires the usage of different parts of your brain, right? Reading, the content is there. When you're speaking, you kind of have to come up with the content in the moment. And so that's the major difference. So you want to do both. You want to do both. Don't think that reading aloud and not doing the other practices will help, because reading aloud is easier. You really want to do both.
Yeah, and just to like add in general terms to that, not especially for reading aloud, whatever practices you're doing, whatever you're working on, whatever you're focusing on, going out there in the real world and speaking, don't say that I'm extending or I'm blending or I'm doing this because when I do this, I won't get stuck. Because that would ultimately shift your mind back towards the getting stuck part. Do all those things to speak more smoothly, do all those things to move you in the right direction. Because if you look at it like I'm extending to not get stuck, then you will start extending and then you will start anticipating and checking whether you're getting stuck, and that will bring you back to getting stuck, even though you're extending. So do all of the things with the focus of speaking more smoothly, of speaking in your new speaking style, whatever we said right here, whatever we have said in the past, or whatever Michael has been saying for the last 15, 16 years.
Yeah. And that's the whole goal of Pro 90D. It really, believe it or not, it really isn't to help you to stop stuttering. It's to help you to become an excellent speaker, speak smoothly, clearly, calmly, confidently. Because we know that if you're doing that 95% of the time, 98, 97, then that means you can't be doing whatever you're doing now, stuttering, blocking, getting stuck, speaking chop. You can't be doing that 50%, 30%, 20%, 10%, right? You can't, because the numbers don't add up. So the more you're doing this, the less you'll do that. And it's just better to focus on this, which is speaking smoothly, right? Because that's more positive, and just let this take care of itself. That's what Pro 90 is. That's why we have a lot of professionals like Cassandra. She's an author. She has her own book. We have professionals like her. We have doctors. We have regular folks that come in. We have students. And I think the common denominator is that, excuse me, most of them don't just want to stop stuttering, but they want to actually, they need to become excellent speakers. They need to command an audience. They need to project authority, confidence. They want to help people. They want to add value. That's the difference with Pro 90D. We're also holistic. We don't just deal with speech and techniques. We also don't just deal with mindset and affirmations, right? And we don't just deal with identity. It's the whole thing. So we want to encourage any of you that are watching this now or later, if you want to accelerate your process, you can get in touch with Farrukh or myself via our website, pro90d.com. And you can book an assessment session with us. You see Cassandra here, and you see some of our other clients here. And we didn't even ask Cassandra to come on. She just popped in and she shared her real life experiences. So if you want to kind of accelerate one of my good friends, Tom, says that the long term never happens if you don't start now, right? And I also say the time will pass anyway, so you might as well get started right now. If you're struggling, if you've got interviews coming up, presentations coming up, then get in, do the work now. We do have that affirmations program. It's very inexpensive. It's a great way to get started. But if you really want to accelerate your progress, then private coaching is the fastest way. And it's a smart investment because for some people, it's not really even about the money. It's just about feeling better, having a better quality life. For other people, it's about that. And also, they want to improve their career. They want to be able to get those sales. They want to be able to communicate more persuasively, do the things in their career that they're capable of doing, but their speech has been holding them back. So by improving your speech, by investing whatever it is, it could be 2,000, it could be 3,000, right? You get that money back often in your first promotion, in your first paycheck or your second paycheck or your first or second sale or third sale. But then it's the investment that keeps on giving. You don't just get your money back then, you get it back in every additional paycheck and every additional position that you are promoted in because your speech has improved. So it's an investment. But we have options. We have our virtual speech masters club, we have our self-study, we have our affirmations, and we have our private coaching. Just wanted to share that with you guys. So Farrukh, Cassandra, any last words as we wrap up? Anything that you want to leave with the audience?
Haley just sent a message on the group saying probably she needs to add something about exposure. Haley, are you there?
Yeah, Haley, if you want to pop in, you can add it, either audio or video, or if you just want us to read it, it's totally up to you. I think
Oh,
you were on.
hello.
Yeah, go
Hello,
ahead.
yes, I am here. I just wanted to double up on something really that you were saying about exposure. I've spent a long time practicing and exposing myself throughout the last few months. And at first, it really does. You really have to fight that feeling of fear. But now I've been exposing myself often, then I just don't have half as much fear anymore. I've built up the confidence and I've built up the memory, like the muscle memory, that I can do that and I know I can do it. So I just wanted to just reiterate really what you were saying about exposure and how it can make such a huge difference. Recently, I work in a school and I had 6 weeks off over the summer holidays. And I was concerned that I would not be speaking to as many people throughout that 6 weeks. So I made the point of going out and exposing myself every single day to different people, different phone calls. And actually, I went back to school far stronger than I left it. So yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that really.
That's good. Stronger. Very good.
You.
Thank you, Haley. Okay, Farrukh, Cassandra, anything else that you guys want to add?
Not something apart from saying that really proud of, how do you say your name? Cassandra?
Oh,
Cassandra, yes.
Cassandra, very proud of Haley, the work that you have been doing on your speech, and it has really been great. And something that we have seen is the constant amount of work, being right there, working every day, asking questions, and doing all this stuff. So it's not just a coach can help you do the things, but once again, you have to do the things by yourself over and over again. And the people who do that, if you follow this, there's almost no way that you can't get to where you want to. There's almost no way if you just keep consistently at it. And our job and our goal as a coach is to help you be consistent with it, is to help you be at it, even during the times when you feel like it's not working, it's not going well. And you can see all of these clients, you can ask them, Haley, and all of them, Cassandra, like you said, Malika, I've just started working with her. So everyone, yeah. So if you keep giving it a consistent effort, you will ultimately get there. All I can say that for sure, I would say. And yeah, that's probably it for me.
Very
I
good.
just
Yeah,
wanted
go
to
ahead.
add, oh, forgive me here, that I really enjoyed this session. I saw it pop up and I was a bit late, but how often do you guys do these types of forum? Because I found a lot of value in it myself as being a client.
We'll be doing them at least twice a month, at least twice a month. Sometimes we'll do a workshop like we did one a couple of weeks ago. We had
Yeah,
Haley on, right?
yeah. 2 weeks
Uh,
ago.
And then we did one a week before that, and we had another one of your clients named Ola, right? We had him on. This week, we magically had you on. So that was great. But yeah, so we'll try to do these, two to three times a month, I would say.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you for being here. It
Thank you.
really makes a big difference to us as well as to the people who are watching to see real people, and you're in the process. So that's very, very important. Right.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you. So, okay, someone asked, would you recommend to model 60-second video and master speaking style, and then move and repeat it, play, pause for 20 minutes with your modeling video? Good question. Kind of detailed. We'll summarize it, break it down, and say, I would say we have people start out with 37 seconds, but anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, you can start out with. You want to memorize it so you can kind of get the exact words. You don't have to memorize somebody's video. You can just study how they speak and try to speak like them. But I've found over the last 13 years that it's better to have people memorize so they don't skip words that I'm using, right? That they're using the same words. So I have them memorized, and then they go from there to doing sometimes longer videos, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Dr. Ismail used to do 5 and 10 minute, 15-minute videos, literally. And then you have to figure out your own schedule in terms of how long you actually do it. Sometimes I recommend that people do practices in smaller chunks, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here. You can do longer chunks. So it's really up to you. And yes, you do want to, in some of your practice sessions, you want to record yourself. You don't have to do it every time you practice, but some you want to record yourself for the same reason Cassandra said she started recording herself so she could play it back and go, oh, wow, I didn't even know I was doing this or I wasn't doing this. So some practices, record yourself, play it back, watch it, play your model, compare the two, then do it again. Okay. All right. So we'll wrap up there and we'll see everyone the next time. The replay will automatically be on YouTube, but we'll also be sending this out via email. Okay. So thank you all. Thank you, Farrukh, Cassandra. Thank everyone else, Gabriel, Giovanni, Haley, Malika, Sibella. Thank you. And we'll see you all next time.
See everybody. Bye. Take care.